Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, the so-called Monsanto Protection Act causes a stir, but some say reaction to it is overblown.
Marketing and making a profit dominated the agenda at the Mississippi Peanut Growers Association.
In southern gardening, the Indica Azalea will tell you the deadline each year for pruning them.
In the markets, a smaller 2013 U.S. crop and good demand push cotton prices higher as U.S. corn futures touch a 9-month low in the wake of the prospective plantings report.
In the feature segment, John Arrechea, the Mississippi Forestry Association's Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year. Arrechea has championed both urban and rural forestry on the job and in his private life.
This area here at one time for a number of years was in different Christmas trees, probably improved variety of Virginia pine. And so as time went on, my wife tells me I need to slow up a little bit. So this was just open field for a while after the last Christmas trees were harvested. Anyway, and so I went ahead and planted this area in loblolly. So this is a stand. I'm real proud of it.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The continuing resolution spending bill was passed by the Congress and signed by President Obama last week to keep the country running. It contained, however, a provision that's gained the nickname the Monsanto Protection Act.
Leighton, the provision doesn't name Monsanto directly, but it has drawn criticism from organizations ranging from anti-biotech groups to the Tea Party. U.S. News and World Report says the scope of the language, however, may be much narrower than many believe. Section 735 of the continuing resolution bill is referred to officially as the Farmer Assurance Provision. It was supported by the American Soybean Association, the American Farm Bureau Federation, the National Association of Wheat Growers, and the Congressional Hunger Center, among others. The language reportedly is not permanent. It will expire in 6 months. The provision says a legally planted, U.S. Department of Agriculture approved biotech crop can be grown to harvest and sold. The provision would prevent a lawsuit or judge's order from destroying an already growing biotech crop before harvest. This could occur if the safety of a biotech crop was challenged in court during the growing season. Buying the seed, fertilizer, and other inputs needed to make a crop represents a sizable investment for farmers. This provision would obviously also benefit a biotech company like Monsanto. Those opposed to biotech crops charge collusion between some congressional leaders and the biotech industry. A petition opposing Section 35 with more than 250,000 signatures is being circulated. President Obama signed the bill in spite of protests in front of the White House. John Entine of the Genetic Literacy Project at George Mason University says the opposition to the provision is overblown. He points out before any transgenic crop ever gets okayed, it runs through a multi-year approval process that is a torturous gauntlet.
With a large oversupply in last year's peanut crop, it will be essential for producers to stay educated about market demands and strategies for the future. At the recent Mississippi Peanut Growers Association annual meeting, farmers learned about current market conditions and ways to maintain profitability. Farm Week's Amy Taylor reports.
With the absence of a futures market in the peanut industry, there's a lot at risk due to production swings. Marshall Lamb, director at the National Research Laboratory in Dawson, Georgia, says a massive undersupply last year led to record high acreage in 2012, resulting in the largest oversupply the U.S. has ever seen in peanuts.
What that has done is it's dampened the markets way down to the point that no contracts are being offered. And it affects not only producers, but it affects processors. It also affects the rural economic activity in a lot of the small towns that peanuts are raised and purchased in. But an interesting dynamic that has occurred lately is that China, who has always been a net exporter of peanuts, is now purchasing large volumes of U.S. peanuts, and that is entering into the marketplace, which is very good for the peanut industry.
Lamb says producers will need to drop acreage by about 35% or more in order to get supply back in balance with demand. Additionally, Mississippi State University Extension Service plant pathologist Dr. Alan Henn says it's important to study plant disease control methods in order to maximize peanut quality and profitability.
We found that by putting out an early application of a fungicide soon after plant emergence, that you could reduce the amount of disease later on during the season. And so that brings up a real interesting question, because you don't see the disease until canopy closure, which is sometime in late July, early August. Why is an application at planting time reducing stem rot much later in the season?
In addition, Dr. Henn says new fungicides referred to as Group 7 are now available. The Mississippi Peanut Growers Association annual meeting and trade show was held at the Lake Terrace Convention Center. From Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
What is one of the most glamorous plants of the springtime southern landscape? Well, in this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us why the Southern Indica azalea is sure to draw attention. He also has an important date regarding their pruning.
If there's a single shrub that could be called a staple in the southern landscape, it is the azalea. The spectacular flowering has made azaleas one of the all-time most popular landscape shrubs. It's early spring in South Mississippi, and the azaleas are putting on a show. One of the earliest blooming varieties is the Southern Indica azalea. Whether used as specimen plants, hedges, or backgrounds, Southern Indica azalea has to be my favorite azalea. The blooms are huge, resembling rhododendrons, and are created in great quantities. The flowers are funnel-formed with narrow bases and bell-shaped edges. The flower colors are pinks, purples, and reds, and includes white. Many have speckles in the flower throats. Southern Indica azalea has the potential to be a big plant. Pruning can keep them smaller with denser growth. Always prune after flowering, but before July 4th. The flower buds for next year are formed early in the summer. Azalea lacebug is a common insect pest and causes leaf speckling. These are sucking insects that live on the underside of the leaf and leave telltale spots of black frass. Azaleas have a shallow and fragile root system that can be damaged from excessive raking. Using organic mulch like these oak leaves is the best method to keep landscape weeds under control. You can expect Southern Indica azaleas to bloom in early March down on the coast to early April in North Mississippi. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Time now for the markets with Leighton Spann. Leighton, cotton acreage is expected to nosedive in Mississippi this year.
Artists expected to be down over 40% compared to last year, 2012, and cotton futures, as you might imagine, are up this week. Well, also ahead in the markets, record U.S. poultry exports help grain farmers. Cattle placements hit a 17-month low in the latest on-feed report, and the pork sector may see some herd expansion underway. We begin with some analysis of the prospective plantings and grain stocks numbers that the USDA put out back on March 28th. As we noted earlier, Mississippi producers plan for less cotton. They also will plant more corn and about the same amount of soybeans. Now, for the bigger picture on what these and many other numbers mean for the market, I talked with Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley on Thursday. Well, perhaps most anticipated reports of the year, and again, as it always seems to, corn grabbed the headlines out of this latest set of reports.
That's right, it really did, and it wasn't so much for the most anticipated report of the day, the prospective plantings report. It really stemmed from a shocking grain stocks report, which comes out each quarter of the year. Just quickly, the prospective plantings report, it looks like nationally farmers are expected to plant 97.2 million acres to corn, 77.1 acres to soybeans. Both of those are roughly in line with where we were at last year with acreage from a national perspective. Mississippi, corn acres a little over 1 million acres for the first time since 1960 that corn acres have jumped over the million mark, and then soybean acres 1.9 million acres to soybeans here in the state. So you're right though, corn really did grab the headlines from that quarterly stocks report.
And we've seen a reaction, of course, in the livestock sector. Pleased, I guess we could say that the price of corn has come down.
It did. Corn stocks and elevators across the U.S., 5.4 billion bushels compared to an estimate of just over 5 billion. It was even higher than the highest expectation, and that was really what drove the market down. Nearby corn contracts off about 13% since the report was released. Since steadied out a little bit, but the 2 days following that report, it really took corn prices really took a hit. Soybean prices fell in line with corn, kind of rode those coattails because of the shocking number.
And you say corn may have a bottom even as we speak. Could.
You never really know, but it looks like it has steadied out since the report. Right now everybody's sitting on what planting's going to do, how planting shapes up across the U.S., and also moving into the growing season, how the crop really looks.
And what about soybean prices? What are you seeing near term and maybe longer term as a result of these numbers?
A similar story to corn. There was a little bit more soybeans in elevators across the U.S. than we expected, not nearly as drastic as corn, but the soybean market is still very tight, so we're looking for a really good crop. If that happens, you know, prices are probably going to be under some pressure. If not, then more than likely prices could go higher.
And there has been a little bit of concern as far as emergence in corn here due to our weather in the Mid-South.
That's correct. We get in early here in the Mid-South, and unfortunately some cold weather has come late. Soil temps are very low and emergence has been delayed.
We move now to our trivia quiz for the week, and this week it deals with a popular fresh vegetable. The question, how much lettuce do Americans eat every year? The choices for answer: 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, or 40 pounds. You'll find out in a few more minutes.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar, and in the second part of the markets, Leighton Spann will report on poultry, cattle, hogs, and catfish. In the feature segment today, John Arrechea, the President Mississippi Forestry Association Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year. Arrechea has championed both urban and rural forestry on the job and in his private life.
Each year, many Mississippians are seriously injured or killed when farm tractors overturn. Don't become a statistic. Avoid rollovers by staying away from steep ditches and pond banks. Slow down and operate tractors at a safe angle to the slope of the terrain. Always keep loader buckets low when transporting materials, and inspect the work area for obstacles such as stumps, holes, or washes. A message from the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. 2 beef cattle boot camps will occur in the next 2 weeks. They're sponsored by Mississippi State University's Extension Service and the Mississippi Agriculture and Forestry Experiment Station. You'll learn about hoof care, crossbreeding systems, forage, feed, and mineral nutrition. Register early and the fee is $35. At the door, $45. On Friday, April 12th, you'll go to the boot camp at the South Farm. That'll be on campus at Mississippi State University in Starkville. The following Friday, April 19th, it moves to the MSU Brown Loam Branch Experiment Station. That's on 7 Springs Road at Raymond. A workshop on managing wild pig damage will take place Thursday, May 23rd in Natchez. The location is the Adams County office of the Mississippi State University Extension Service. That's on Carthage Point Road. You'll learn about how to trap and control wild hogs. The cost is $30. That includes lunch, but you need to pre-register by May 15th. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
Well, record exports of U.S. poultry and eggs are also a benefit to corn and soybean growers. Greg Tyler of the USA Poultry and Egg Export Council says that those exports totaled over $5.5 billion last year. Now, that's a lot of chicken production, which naturally increased the demand for chicken feed, which is primarily made up of corn and soybeans. Tyler says he expects the export market for poultry and eggs to continue to expand, which will bolster the usage of U.S. meal and corn. Speaking of corn, lower corn prices certainly help the feeder cattle market, but not all analysts agree necessarily on how soon feeder cattle prices will rise. Trader Darren Newsom outlines what he thinks needs to happen to straighten things out.
Number one, we have to see the demand come back for feeder cattle, and if we keep posting these low live cattle numbers, we're just not going to see the demand automatically come back for feeder cattle. The lower corn market certainly helps. So the longer we can keep the corn market under pressure, the more support we're going to build in the feeder cattle. I just don't think it has the same commercial or the same supply and demand fundamental situation that live cattle have. Yes, we could see a decent rally come out of the feeders, but it's going to depend a lot, I think, on help from both live cattle and corn. And possibly in the feeder cattle, we might be looking a little further out, because if we're going to start rebuilding this herd, it's probably not going to be for the summer months. It may have to be for the fall and winter.
Moving to pork now, the USDA's quarterly hogs and pigs report showed U.S. hog farmers starting to expand production. The U.S. inventory of almost 66 million head as of March 1st was up 1% from a year ago. Meanwhile, analyst Sue Martin is thinking more about pork exports. She says she believes the U.S. has many more trade opportunities for the hog sector coming in China because of several serious issues in that country right now.
Food inflation is supposed to be a little over 3% there, 3.2%. If that continues, that's a little high for a country of that size, so that means they'll import. Secondly, they've got hog disease. They've got some blue ear pig disease, but they also have hoof and mouth disease. And the number of dead pigs showing up is getting to be quite numerous. So what they report makes you wonder if it isn't way even bigger yet. That means they're probably, even though they say the hog prices are falling, I think they're going to be importing pork.
Last month, the state of Mississippi amended its catfish country of origin labeling law. Under the amendment, restaurants are now required to identify the origin of catfish-like species, such as basa and tra, that are served to customers. The amendment was unanimously approved by the Mississippi legislature during its regular session in Jackson. Well, before our feature story, the trivia answer for you this week, that answer is C. Americans eat 30 pounds of lettuce a year. In this week's feature story, we meet a gentleman whose passion for trees is unmistakable. Many children in the Oxford, Mississippi area got their first introduction to what tree farming is all about thanks to the school tours that John Arrechea hosted on his property for 25 years. John continues to be a strong advocate for forestry and always has time to show a visitor to his farm what it means to be a good steward of the land. In October, John Arrechea was named the present Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year by the Mississippi Forestry Association. This story first aired last fall. This sign marks the turnoff for Springwood Christmas Tree Farm, John Arrechea's tree farm south of Oxford, Mississippi. What are now open areas on this beautiful place used to be covered in Christmas trees. Lots of Christmas trees, 7 acres worth in fact. Christmas trees were the first main enterprise of this farm. From 1985 to 2010, John Arrechea had school groups out here each year. He taught them about what it takes to produce Christmas trees and about how to take care of the land.
This was a highlight of my year when the children, even pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, came out in the July, August, September, hot out here, but I knew that the children were going to be coming, and they'd bring their school buses in, and sometimes with as many as 60 children in one group. So, but I enjoyed that.
Each November and December for 25 years, John Arrechea used his tree farm as a demonstration area to educate young people about forestry. During this time, he figures he sold well over 4,000 Christmas trees. Also during these years, John's wife Lois operated a related business each holiday season. She made wreaths and garland from all the cull trees in a workshop in this house on the farm. Although the tours for children ended in 2010 and Christmas tree sales are now limited to stock he buys wholesale and brings in, John is still always more than happy to take a walk on his property with visitors or friends and talk about his tree farm.
the thing that kind of impresses me is with 120 acres, he's got a wide variety of habitat. I mean, he's got some bottomland hardwood, he's got some upland old growth, you know, an area where he's done the Christmas tree farm that he's gradually converting over to pine, and then the pine plantation areas. It's just amazing the variety of habitat he has here.
This ridge on the farm was converted from Christmas trees to loblolly pine production in 2007. John Arrechea personally planted 1,000 seedlings as a reforestation project.
This area here at one time for a number of years was in different Christmas trees, probably improved variety of Virginia pine. And so as time went on, my wife tells me I need to slow up a little bit. So this was just open field for a while after the last Christmas trees were harvested. Anyway, and so I went ahead and planted this area in loblolly. So this is a stand, I'm real proud of it.
Adjacent to the young trees is a stand of 21-year-old loblolly. Forestry consultant Bill Canale worked with John Arrechea on a harvest operation on this part of the tree farm in 2008. A first thinning was conducted on 66 acres of loblolly.
I actually found a quality thinning crew from Bruce, Mississippi. We negotiated with them and conducted basically a fifth row system, fairly light thinning, but it's a beautiful stand of high quality genetics, pole quality material, and John said it was planted with International Paper Company stock, and certainly left enough volume to come back and do a second cut within the next few years.
There has also been other forest management work in addition to harvesting and reforestation on this tree farm in the last 5 years. Other practices have included the rehabilitation of existing fire lanes in 2008, as well as the installation of new ones.
So we come in and, of course, put water bars and turnout ditches on the existing fire lanes, put in new ones, and we covered it with some arrowleaf clover, some common Bermuda, and it's held really well. You know, we don't see much erosion, and he's also got some native grasses coming back on it as well. He's got some common lespedeza for wildlife. So he was looking at 3 things really with the fire lanes: 1, fire control, some wildlife habitat, and then some good areas that he can get around the property and keep an eye on it.
John Arrechea's most recent forest management work on the tree farm was performing a QVM spray in 2011. Working through his consultant and his service forester with the Mississippi Forestry Commission, John obtained cost-share funding for an aerial application to control both woody and herbaceous species of vegetation in the pine plantation. A controlled burn is scheduled to take place in the winter of 2013.
John Arrechea is just a prime example of what we like to see in a forest landowner. He manages his tree farm on a sustainable basis. He has a diversity of crops in his business. He's got the traditional forestry going on. He does thinning and regeneration, but he also does his little Christmas tree farm sales.
Unlike some tree farmers, forestry is more than just a hobby for John Arrechea. He is college trained in this field and was a forester with the U.S. Forest Service until his retirement in 1987. John has had a written forest management plan for his property since the day he bought it 42 years ago.
A landowner's objectives can vary, and depending on what they want to do, they can either manage for economic gain, or they can have multi-purpose management. John manages multi-purpose. He is a big advocate for wildlife. He also has the Christmas tree farm here. So he has income producing opportunity as well as beneficial enjoyment.
But probably the most impressive thing that really stood out to me was what Mr. John and Miss Lois do for the community in promoting forestry and the tree farm program. He's held a position on the Oxford Tree Board, served as the chair on that board, and he's helped found a nature trail which was actually named after him here in the community.
Perhaps most importantly, John Arrechea is responsible for helping organize the Lafayette County Forestry Association 20 years ago. John is now the editor of the Lafayette CFA newsletter and serves on the board as treasurer. He has been a member of the Mississippi Forestry Association since 1965 and the Society of American Foresters since 1967. From Oxford, Mississippi, I'm Leighton Spann reporting. You can watch this story on John Arrechea, again on the Farm Week website, Facebook page, or on YouTube. That website address is farmweek.msucares.com. We'll also have links there and some contact information for the agencies where you can get further forestry advice if you want to start and manage your own tree farm. An artist, I talked to John and Lois, and he did get that control burn in that he talked about last month in March. He did burn that 66 acres, and as soon as the weather gets a little better, he's planning to put out some clover and grasses on those fire lanes.
Tell you what, just a great tree farm, and just, you know, the land is fairly steep in places, and it just holds the erosion in an excellent place, and he's willing to share that information with other people.
He is.
Now we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, you'll travel to Northwest Mississippi for some superior catfish tasting.
The business is Pride of the Pond, and owner Bill Battle says his small but state-of-the-art processing facility is committed to quality. The commitment begins with how the catfish are grown and continues through processing to the customer.
You'll also find out about a new global food initiative that's underway at Mississippi State University.
In Southern gardening, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman's favorite flower, the Supertunia.
We'll also have highlights from one of the nation's best greenhouse tomato short courses, and it takes place each year in Mississippi. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.